Now we're talking about sports and the NHL. So, turning to sports, the Chicago Blackhawks won the number 3 pick in the draft during the NHL Draft Lottery Monday night. So, our very own, we're joined by an expert, Chris Kwiecinski. He's joining us to talk about it. So, first question, what kind of player are the Blackhawks likely to target with their number 3 pick, Chris?
Well, it's really interesting when you bring it up because yesterday when we got to talk to GM Kyle Davidson, he said best player available. And we've heard that a lot. We've heard that a lot with the Bears. We've heard that a lot with a lot of other people. But in this specific instance, he's basically saying, whoever we think is the best player there, we're just going to take them. And I think with this Blackhawks team this last year, they finished with the second to worst record in the league for the second straight year. So they just kind of need to take young, really good players. I think it's a good strategy. It just depends on how they kind of rank out players and kind of compare guys in the end.
Okay, Chris, put in perspective, did we get lucky or not with the 3rd pick? Because I understand our odds, the Hawks' odds of getting the number 1 pick were pretty good. Do the math for us. Is this good or bad that we got the 3 pick?
I don't know if I'm going to do math. That's not my forte. If that was going to happen, I'd probably short circuit on air. We do not watch it right now. But if you watched the lottery last night, it was, in my opinion, it was kind of archaic. They were showing like all these lottery balls. They're picking ping pong balls, and the Hawks their odds changed from like 13.5% to like 36% of getting the number 1 pick, and then back down to 9%.
Oh, no,
so close.
I know. I was like, sure. And we watched the New York Islanders had a 3% chance to win the first pick before the lottery even started. And here they are with the top pick. And I'm like, okay, well, whoever their president is, I'm calling them for the lottery numbers next time. Because,
right.
Emotional roller coaster.
All right, how does the class itself compare to last year's? The overall class?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the last couple years have been really similar classes where there's been one guy. There's one guy at the top of the class. In 2023, you mentioned the Hawks getting lucky. They did when they got Connor Bedard. They got the kid, the prodigy that everybody really wanted. And it was him and then everybody else. Last year, it was the same with Macklin Celebrini. It was up here, and then there was everybody else after him, too. And the Blackhawks took Artem Leshinov out of Michigan State. But this year, the difference is kind of close. It's going to be super interesting to figure out how the Blackhawks kind of tier out and rank their board, especially in terms of draft picks and all that, because there's one guy that's considered the best guy. His name is Matthew Schaefer. He's a defenseman who could be the number 1 overall pick. We assume he's going to be the number 1 overall pick with the Islanders because they're not the worst team in the league. Obviously, if they had 3% chance, they weren't expected to get the number 1 pick, but here they are. So they're probably going to take the best guy in the draft, which is Matthew Schaefer in this instance. But now between Schaefer and everybody else,
can we get
close.
A couple more names out there? What do you think? I know you said it's kind of him and then everybody else, but have there been any other names floated around?
Yes. Right now, there is Michael Misa, who is a center out of the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League. He's one of the best prep leagues and I guess the amateur leagues in the world. And then there's Porter Martone, who is a very good offensive player. He doesn't skate as well as you'd expect some other offensive players to do, but he's electric with the puck. He knows how to create offense, and that's kind of what the Blackhawks need at this moment. They need a lot of excitement and need a little bit of that, not hope, but a little that guy that's going to come up in the pipeline where you can say, this is going to be the guy that's going to make fireworks. This is the guy we're excited to play with Connor Bedard, and kind of gets fans not excited for the future, but kind of saying, okay, well, maybe in a couple years or maybe at the back end of this year, because the last couple years we've seen the Blackhawks bring their young guys in and have a lot of success. Maybe this could be that thing where it's like, well, he's waiting in the pipeline to come up and be that guy where we can say, hey, what does this kid got?
That'd be great. Now, Chris, can you give us an idea? We've picked 3rd in the past, right? How's our track record historically with the number 3 pick?
It's actually pretty solid. All things considered, it's pretty solid because back in the day, I believe it was 84 where they picked Dennis Savard, who is a very good player. Also a future head coach of the Blackhawks. He coached them 2000 decade towards the back end of that era. But there's also this guy named Jonathan Toews. Now, if you remember him, he was arguably the best player in the world in like 2013. That stretch, especially when they were winning the cup, it was solid, pretty solid. But the last time they picked number 3 was in 2019 when they selected Kirby Dach. And they have his brother Colton Dock on the team now, but they traded Kirby when they were kind of rebuilding, kind of restructuring everything there too. But it's been pretty solid because there's also a guy that you may know named Eddie Olczyk, who's a broadcaster extraordinaire for NBC, a former Blackhawk who got to be very familiar with the Blackhawks when he was calling all the Blackhawks games during the Stanley Cup run. And Edzo is obviously a fan favorite here in Chicago, but if you kind of look back at the history, it's pretty solid. And
Number
I think
3
this year
doesn't have to be a bad one, right? I pointed this, Chris. I pointed this out on the air today too. Michael Jordan was also chosen 3rd in the NBA draft.
Means nothing.
Hey.
Yeah.
We could strike it rich. Hey, before we let you go, Chris, can you give us kind of maybe more of a high level outlook for the season? I know they finished 8th in their conference this past year. It was win-loss wise, it was not a successful year, but we've got these young stars. We got Connor Bedard on board. Is there an overall reason for optimism going into the 2025-2026 season?
There really is. And the biggest reason is because there's so much that needs to be figured out. There's so much that needs to be laid forward in terms of just the future of the franchise. Like you mentioned, there's so many young players that they could have come up in the pipeline. Guys like Bedard is already there. We've already seen him, but also guys like Frank Nazar, who at the back end of the season showed what he was capable of, scoring a lot of goals, playing really well next to Connor Bedard. We're looking for that guy that's going to maybe not play next to Connor Bedard on the top line, but that could anchor the back line right after Connor Bedard, kind of that offensive option too. But with this number 3 overall pick, you're going to get another guy that fits into that future too. But also, they don't have a head coach yet. That's next on their list of things to do in terms of getting their draft board ready to go.
Mid-season, right? Luke Donaldson?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And we were talking to Kyle Davidson yesterday, and he mentioned, everyone's still in the mix. His phone's buzzing, so there's a lot of interest in the job. But it would depend. It obviously remains to be seen who it could be. And whoever they have as head coach could influence who they draft. We don't know that. But I think right now there's so much optimism when it comes to the young players they have. And they're really preaching that patience. And they went out and got a lot of guys in free agency last year. But I think now you can look at it and say, hey, well, the young guys are going to start playing with the veterans. And you never know what it's going to be. The young pipeline could be something that Hawks fans could really endear themselves to in the near future.
Okay, we will have to trust the process here. All right, Chris Kwachinski, thank you for the time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll be